Yeah, I'm sitting here in New Braunfels. This is pretty intense. Super intense. It's crazy. The water is running on the street like a river. And when the wind picks up, it's like, I mean, it looks like the ocean. It's nuts. That's all I can say about it. I'm gonna let it run for a while. We're gonna see if we get a good lighting streak. You never know. There might be something intense. I just missed one before I started recording. A huge one. It just lit up the entire sky. There might be one more of those. There we go. Let's get the boom. Oh, that was close. Oh, this is right on top of me. Oh, that's messed up. Oh. Ooh. Uh-oh. I can hear hail. Can you hear it? Not a lot, but there are some. Can you hear those tapping? That's hail. I can see on my recording, my camera, it's getting flooded. The sensors are getting flooded. It can't handle it. It's simply too much. Too bright. You can't reach to compensate for the light. That is intense. That is so nuts. I got hail mixed with the rain now. That could be a tornado threat. I might check my app and see what it says. It's right on top of me. This is not good at all. This is really bad. You hear the hail? And tapping? That's hail. And it's not a good sign. There's a lot of updraft. This is 70 degrees outside, severe thunderstorm warning. Take shelter in place per instructions issued by Austin, San Antonio, Texas, U.S. National Weather Service. Affected area, Comal County. Description, the National Weather Service in Austin, San Antonio has issued severe thunderstorm warning for southwestern Caldwell County in south central Texas, southeastern Hays County in south central Texas, northeastern Guadalupe County in south central Texas, east central Comal County in south central Texas until 9:30. Well, it's past 9:30 and it's freaking ongoing. Has a 60 miles per hour wind gust and quarter-sized hail. Okay, that explains the sound. Oh, this is messed up. Large hail, damaging winds, and continuous cloud to ground lightning are occurring with this storm. Move indoors immediately. Lightning is one of nature's leading killers. Remember, if you can't hear thunder, you are close enough to be struck by lightning. Torrential rainfall is occurring with this storm and may lead to flash flooding. Do not drive the vehicle through flooded driveway. Tornado possible. Hail 1 inch. Wind 60 miles an hour. And we are past 9:30 Central Time and it's still going. It's actually picked up. I feel like a storm watcher right now. And I'm like a sitting duck. There's no way in hell I can get out of here fast. It can't be done. I drive an 18-wheeler. This is not a sports car. It's going to take me a long time to build up speed. Hear that? It is coming down big time. Now this is pretty freakish. Don't break my windshield, I'm gonna get pissed off. It'll be the third windshield I put in this truck. I'm tired of it. Well, my bad. It's actually only 8:41 p.m. Central Time. So it's still going to go on for an hour at least. Yet I can't feel any wind because my truck is not moving. But it's coming from behind. That might be why. I'm facing east right now. And the wind is coming from the west. So my trailer is probably sheltering and cushioning the wind. Or breaking it off. But I can assure you I'm not happy about this. This is a shitty place to be stuck. stopping recording, and then I started again without sound because I need to talk to my wife.
This is just absolutely insane. So joining us right now from somewhere on the planet, Mike from around the world. How you doing, Mike?
Pastor Paul, God bless you. Doing well tonight.
Good. Praise God. I'm so glad. You got everything cranked up on your volume there?
Yeah, am I good to go?
Yep, you're good to go. Good
All right.
to go, Mike. Mike. Oh, Mike. You told us maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you said, oh, yeah, by the way, hail was going to start falling from the sky. Hail would start, and meteorites, and would start hitting us. And this week, Mike, just yesterday, a 12.5-pound what do they call this thing? It's like a cannonball, a chunk of ice. They call it a mega meteor. Here it is. Crashed through a guy's roof in Wisconsin, put a 3-foot diameter hole in the top of his roof, come all the way in, hit him in the arm, just grazed him. Would have killed him if it just been a couple more inches to the right. And hailstorms, apocalyptic 6-pound hail falling in Texas, 5-pound hail falling in Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri. Mike, it's going on every day now. And what about this, Mike, before I turn you loose? 12 CMEs, 12 solar flares, 10 of them were C-class, 2 were M-class. And what about the volcanoes erupting in the Congo and in Alaska and in Mount Etna in Italy? This is since you were here last week. Mike, what's going on? And then we'll talk about all that before I even talk about food shortages. So what's going on, Mike?
Well, we had another, I believe a couple of weeks ago, I told you, look out, we had another inbound pulse coming in.
Yes.
And that would see changes in the sun, which would in turn affect things in the earth. And that's what happened. Unfortunately, we have a slew of pulses inbound. So that activity you're seeing with the sun is about to escalate. I would say as far as its activity right now, it's been mild. Will not be mild when, as conditions begin to form around the sun now. And that's, of course, these things are out of the ordinary, yes, but still, in the rating of what's coming, you can call that mild. And it won't be mild for long. In fact, part of the buildup, part of the elusiveness of this buildup is that all of a sudden we have activity and then it goes back to quiet. People tend to lose focus and then wham, everything happens again. Which is why, that's why shows like this are important to keep people in mind about these things so they won't be taken by surprise. There are too many people out there in the world frightened. They're scared, to be frank with you, of what's happening in the world. They are becoming extremely fearful. But it's a good thing to know that somebody in the body of Christ has information regarding these things that are coming. But the sun is really about to escalate in its activities big time. And now we are about to begin to see celestial objects that no one ever discussed before. So, the season that we're in, very strange objects showing up that nobody has tracked.
Are you talking about now, are you saying sort of like when we had that big interstellar whatever that was that went racing through? Are you saying that kind of activity or?
Oh yeah, no, that kind of like for example, say around 11 p.m. at night, right when time of the night when the show ends, and all of a sudden it turns daytime outside for about, and it stays like that until morning. Things like that. They'd be hard pressed to give everybody a good explanation.
What?
Only to turn around, and then we have in the middle of the day, the sun is gone. Nobody can see the sun. They don't know where it is or anything.
Wait a minute.
Have celestial happenings like that.
You're saying, like, let's say it could be midnight or so. We got a dark, nice, starry night. The stars are out, and then all of a sudden, you're saying it's just going to turn like twilight or something? Just light?
No, daylight.
Daylight.
Daylight, like Florida sunshine daylight.
No, it can't, Mike. How? How can that happen?
As part of the nature of some of these drastic celestial changes we're about to see that nobody's able to hide, and they're going to be hard-pressed to explain this away. I would suggest that people really understand what has to come into motion for this to take place. They will begin to talk about a second sun. You're going to hear that more and more. I'm telling you, Pastor Paul, everything we have and your experts that have been on this show, what has been discussed, scientists are now having to come out and explain it. And folks are going to twist everything towards an agenda. So don't expect them to, because they're not, these folks are not spiritual. They're not. They hate spiritual language. And they're going to explain things based upon Darwin's theory of evolution, which is a progressive state of things. Don't believe that, because what we're facing is drastic, and never think that God's hand is not in play. In fact, that's going to become painfully obvious to a lot of people that what they have seen is not covered in physics. It's physically impossible. The forces won't permit it. And they're not going to be able to explain things after a given time. But we're about to face some very strange celestial happenings.
So, Mike, I guess I should settle myself down for a minute and just remember what Jesus said. That Jesus said in Luke 21, he said this. And he talks about nation and against nation stuff. He says in verse 10 or verse 11, he says, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences like locusts and plagues, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. Is that what you're saying we're going to see?
That's right. Big time. Yeah. The nature of such is so, Pastor, it is so, the nature of which will scare the best of us. I tell you what, it's one thing to discuss it. It's another matter to see it. It gives you a different feeling. It feels like it does not belong. So that's going to be a time for people to really gauge themselves as far as their flesh and spirit is.
So people are going to be, people's going to be caught off guard, because, if I read this, I can just read it and it says great signs and fearful sights should be in the heavens. You just keep on reading. But you wait till the sun lights up the night, or it goes dark in the day, and people are going to freak completely out. And if they don't know this is in the Bible, they won't know what's going on. First thing I'm going to do when this happens is say, well, Mike said it. And the second thing I'm going to say is the Bible said it first. The Bible said it, didn't it, Mike?
Absolutely. And you know what, Pastor Paul, in fact, speaking about the sun and the solar flares, something is happening in our oceans. And there's a problem. If we get time, I'll state that problem. But the ocean floor is magnetizing. Okay. It really is magnetizing. The sun's activity is increasing, and just about everybody's about to notice a different star in our southern hemisphere. They won't be able to hide this either. The tail of which will point straight down. It's not going to point to the left or to the right. It's going to point straight down. So that's going to be strange within itself, because normally you don't see any type of celestial activity coming to our solar system with the tail pointed straight down. You don't see that, which should give everybody a clue about it'll match a specific chart that you have. It'll match it. And that will give other folks some extra additional information, right? Some evidence behind a very strange force that follows the orbit of our sun, which, by the way, is on that chart. So when those days come, Pastor Paul, given the magnetism of our ocean, solar flares, we're going to cook some of our ocean. That's going to be a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, it's going to kill a lot of the marine life, but it's going to create a weather patterns that's going to be unprecedented, right?
Yeah. And also when a solar flare, when any kind of, right now we have solar winds hitting the earth, not from a flare, right? We're not talking about flares. Just imagine there are no flares on the sun, no CMEs, just solar winds. Every day, our magnetosphere redirects those solar winds to the poles, and the Earth absorbs them. It recharges, so to speak. Well, in this case, it's overcharging. So imagine that changes. Imagine all of that radiation pulled towards the oceans, right? That's what's about to happen.
Oh, so you're saying
That's
the
not gonna be
ocean's,
good.
so you're saying, now I'm starting to get it, but you're saying the ocean's going to magnetize and it's going to draw things toward the ocean, metals.
That's right. That's right. It'll take the radiation. It'll disrupt the magnetosphere. The pole lines of force in the magnetosphere will be different. They will go toward the ocean. Wherever they concentrate, every living thing in that part of the ocean is going to be cooked. Every living thing. So in all ships, they're going to have to quarantine or certainly set up barriers to certain places. This is something they're going to track. Likely, to be honest with you, it's going to cause issues at sea with certain countries, because it's very difficult to find out exactly where it's going to be in the oceans. But the oceans are magnetizing. The Earth keeps it's just putting out metals left and right. The more magma moves, the more we have a magnetic force on the ocean floors. So much so it's disrupting parts of the poles sporadically right now. That will continue to increase because of magma. The movement of magma is also increasing. So it's almost like this chain reaction that nobody can stop. So that force will be redirected, and it won't stay in one spot forever. It's going to move around, and wherever it hits the concentration of the solar winds, it'll be different, because we won't have the protection that we normally have, where it goes straight into the Earth, into the poles, which are somewhat fortified against that. They naturally process all that radiation, but the ocean can't handle that, right? That's like hitting an egg on the side versus the tips. So where the oceans are points of weakness for the Earth, and radiation, when it hits those spots, fish will be cooked. You know what? I would go so far as to say, because during those times, that could be, no less than a month away. And
Whoa!
People out there starving, and I guarantee you, when it cooks those fish, people are going to read about other folks eating those fish.
You're saying we might be about a month away from the fish in the ocean being cooked, and people will, because people are so, huh?
We're not far away from that at all.
And you're saying people are going to eat the dead fish because people are hungry. So
yeah, because they're cooked. They will be thoroughly cooked. They will eat those fish. They're not going to let them go to waste when they discover that.
Crazy, Mike. That's crazy. Folks, this is Mike from around the world with us tonight. Of course, you guys know we've been talking to him for now about 8 years or so. And he's brought things forward over the years that have been just unbelievably come to pass. Mike, you talked about Italy. You're always worried about Italy, volcanoes. Well, here we go. Mount Etna blows again. And, oh, by the way, the Aleutian Island, this volcano over in Alaska that erupted, hadn't erupted since 1974. There was no indication. There was no seismic activity it was going to. And then the volcano down in the Congo exploded about the time that those CMEs were hitting the Earth, and it hadn't erupted since 1994. But a lake caught on fire, Mike. I've got a picture of that somewhere. The lake exploded. The Lake Kivu, which is 20 miles from the volcano. The volcano didn't shoot lava on it. It came up from the ocean, 20 miles away from the volcano. Are you saying? Are you trying? Is this what you're saying, that magma's moving?
Oh yeah, all over the place. It's moving. It's creating new chambers. It's expanding. More rock is melting, which means higher pressures near the surface. It has to have breach points. And to be honest with you, we have not had enough. Right, Pastor? That word you're talking about, when you have oceanic or waterborne volcanoes, where you have smoke and debris coming up in the oceans, in the Pacific, in the North Pacific. There's going to be a huge one in the North Pacific. Unfortunately, one of the monsters on this planet is starting to wake up. I mean, a monster. In fact, let me share with you how much of a monster that is. You could probably fit, I believe you could probably fit 175 Yellowstones in this monster, and it's beginning to awaken. So that's not going to look good for the Pacific. Now, when this takes place, this will be this will change quite a bit, right?
175 Yellowstone cauldrons will fit in this mega. Is this thing out?
Yes.
Where is it at?
Well, it's in the Pacific Ocean. It is one of the biggest in the solar system. Of all the observed volcanoes that we've been able to see on the surface of the planets, this is one of the big ones. It's one of the biggest ones in the solar system. It's right here on Earth. It is part, Tamomassive, come to find out, is part of another system, one big, huge one. And it's very unfortunate, however, but it's moving.
Well, yeah, is it close? Will it threaten the United States? I mean,
it'll threaten the entire world. If that happens, you're looking at a black sky event.
Well, that's the end of time.
That's
the end of time.
Yeah. Well, it won't be the end of time. What it will do is spread thick black smoke all over the place, right?
Right.
And it'll take about 4 or 5 weeks before it starts to thin out.
Will that cool the Earth?
It'll just thin out. Oh, yes. It'll block. It'll do two things. It will. Now, remember, the Earth is emitting gamma rays at an extraordinary rate. Gamma rays in concentration are dangerous. The Earth will emit a type of heat, but a heat that no one wants to feel. So it's unlike any other situation we've ever been in. The patterns of the Earth are not like it used to be, where they have the ice ages. Right? There are lots of top scientists. There are lots of physicists who have gone over these freeze events that have been in the Earth. We have a disruptor this time. The temperature of the Earth right below the surface is so incredibly high that don't be surprised in a couple of months if all over the news you start hearing about water levels dropping at an extraordinary rate. Don't be surprised if reservoirs go empty all over the place. Just don't be surprised, because the heat is increasing by way of that magma. The Earth is overcharging. We still have very exotic particles coming into our solar system. The Earth is absorbing this radiation. It's not stopping. And now it's emitting quite a few things. So it's very dangerous. There are areas in the ocean off limits to any human life. They're off limits. For the first time in history, they're off limits. Even our subs have redirects. Even Russia won't take their subs in those areas because they can't, some of those rays will penetrate everything on that submarine. They can't take them in those areas. So we have some bad geological problems and earth-changing situations that are methodically.
Now, are they? Is it because the sun is reacting? Because something else, if we go to Planet X, or let's say a binary system, as we've talked about, as it's coming toward our solar system. Okay, here's our solar system, and here it comes, and this thing is coming, and it's going to race by. As it's coming, it must be doing everything to the sun. It must be causing the entire solar system to go haywire. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a perturber. Indeed. And as we, come to that close approach, we're going to see a chemical exchange, a matter exchange between both stars. That will be something that nobody in this lifetime has ever witnessed before. And it will be different. It'll be a different set of events. Most of the events cannot be predicted. They cannot be predicted because you're dealing with extraordinary forces, with lots of helium involved, which will go through a chemical change. You're looking at all sorts of nucleus changes in matter. That means standard gasoline could change into whole another fluid. So things will certainly change on the Earth. Inordinate or things, gases under the Earth may become liquid. Vice versa may happen to liquids on the surface of the Earth. They may become gases. But this one of the effects that we're going to feel, and one of the trackers to this, is as this secondary system comes into ours, everybody's going to have to endure two things. First, you're going to have to endure water. That's going to be the top story here shortly. Water everywhere, right? Everybody wants water, right? They're about to get it. They're about to get it to the point where they're going to be sick of water. That people will pray for it not to rain. I'm telling you the truth. And then all of a sudden, nothing will fall. zip zero. It'll become dry, and it's going to be that way for many, many years. So, unfortunately, this water event that's coming is going to be abrupt, drastic, quick, but then it all goes away, and people will. That's going to be the real harm. And
so let's talk about this. We've already got some major shortages of water. We're for the first time right now. They're saying that the western states in America are the driest have been in 127 years, and for the first time in 114 years, they're not going to release the water down the canal to into the desert area where all the cattle are and where a lot of the fields of vegetables and things are grown. They're just not going to give it. And we got cities that are going to be rationing water. It's already starting to happen. So there's water wars beginning between nations. We've got Egypt, Ethiopia threatening to cut the Nile River off from Egypt. We've got Tibet threatening to cut the water off from China. We've got Turkey threatening to cut off the water from the Euphrates River to the rest of the Middle East. And so there's going to be wars and rumors of wars of water. I mean, and so this is already beginning. But you're saying we're going to have a massive amount of rain followed by years of absolute drought.
You bet. Here's how it'll work, Pastor. The weather patterns that we're having right now, they're in a buildup. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people, I of course, you know this by now, I'm kind of out of the box when it comes to science, right? I was never trained to operate inside the box. But the weather patterns are, right now, people are just in this natural denial to what they see. But we have large-scale ice melts happening from the magma. It's melting from underneath the waters. You can't even see where the ice is melting underneath the water. Abruptly, right? These big, huge areas of ice are melting, raising sea levels at an enormous rate. In fact, parts of Russia that used to be permafrost are not permafrost, but they have about 5 foot of mud there. 5 foot of mud. It's not permafrost. That happened in 1 year. This happened from November 2020 to today. That's when it happened. So it didn't take many years. It took a few months for that to happen. That type of activity is increasing. So when it hits a certain specific point, which, by the way, through underwater surveys, you're looking at mountains of water, right? Because it's ice, condensed, frozen water is condensed. That stuff is condensed. When you melt that ice, right, is going to expand, becoming a liquid. It will raise the ocean levels at least by 1.5 feet. At least.
Whoa!
Without rain. So, given that factor, and this is because water moves, and given the rotation of the Earth, given the equator pull of water, because there's a 300-foot high wall of water at the equator. You have to remember that too. All these dynamics, when you start to run these scenarios, you come to the same conclusion. And given the double wobble in the Earth, that 300 all around the Earth, right? All around the rim of the Earth, the water is 300 feet high. Pastor, with a double wobble, do you realize what's going to happen to all that water? That's 300 foot high.
That's going to create tsunamis.
It's going to collapse. It'll collapse. Now, here's what that will do. That means that with all that water collapsing in several different parts at one time, you could literally be standing in say, North Carolina, looking out at the water, turn your back, and without rain, without a noise, with no tsunami, water will come up past your ankles, up to your kneecaps, up to your waist, and you're well off the beach. That's the type of water rise that will happen. So one night, literally, one night or one day, when people are not paying attention, when they're not really noticing anything, they're just going to notice water coming up from nowhere is what will happen. So there will be no rain for this. It doesn't have to be rain for this event. The rain is just going to exacerbate this situation. It's going to make it worse. And given the fact that our atmospheres in the upper atmospheres are being condensed so much that it's quite cold, it can sustain heavier hail stones falling down with the wind patterns also. It's just going to become quite unbearable and very damaging for our, infrastructure, because we didn't harden our infrastructure. We fought each other instead of hardening and preparing our infrastructure, of which many will regret.
You know, Mike, I had that dream. I shared it earlier this week. Some of the folks have heard me talk about it, but I had this dream the other night where Heidi and I were standing in a field. Now, it was sort of like a pasture. There were trees, but it was like where you would maybe let sheep or goat or cattle graze. But there was no sheep or goat or cattle. And Heidi and I were standing in the middle of this field when all of a sudden the water started to rise up over our shoes and then up over our ankles. And then all of a sudden, water and bodies started coming up out of the ground. The water got a little bit lower than my knees, but the bodies covered the field. And I'm like, what is the, this was a horrific, but it was a very spiritual dream. It was very vivid, and I knew God was warning me about something, but I didn't know, is this a metaphor or is this was I actually seeing an event? There was no palm trees there, so I knew I wasn't in any coastal area. It was somewhere like a North Carolina, let's say, or like a, somewhere away from the ocean, but the water just came up. So I don't know where it would be, but it was America. I can promise you in the dream. Does this, what you're saying might happen? I mean, I just had this week.
That can literally happen just like that. Now, we're talking about, listen, people have had to go back to the drawing board on what they thought would happen concerning the water. The U.S. Navy has reasserted their position as far as where the water levels are going to be, given new information. And believe it or not, well, I'll say that later. I'm not going to say it in this show, but some of the teams that work for the government, they do things by very unconventional means. And I'm telling you now, they are scrambling to readjust some things because they know the water is coming, Pastor Paul. They know it's coming, which is why because it's not going to stay there now, right? It's not going to stay,
right?
But it will. For example, you may wake up and the water could be up to your waist, but then 2 days later, it may be dry to the bone. Then a week later, the water's back again, right? This is going to really beat down our infrastructure. And when you see bodies floating in the water, that's precisely what will happen. Take Arizona, for example. When the water hits Arizona, and it will, that ground is dry. They have buried people in that ground all over the place. When that ground starts to become saturated, it's going to give way to those bodies. And there are lots of bodies in Arizona that never had graves. There are lots of bodies in all these reservation areas. They never had caskets. They just put them in the ground and covered them up, right? So if water hits and that type of the ground is just like liquefaction and a liquefaction event, those bodies are coming up out of the water. And that's going to be bad water, right? Because not only it's not going to be clean water rising, the sewage systems are going to be disrupted. It's going to mess up gas lines and everything else. So we're going to have to deal with that. But it will not destroy the earth. God said he would not destroy the earth by water.
Right, he did. He
did not say we wouldn't have floods. We will have floods, but he will not destroy the earth by water.
Right.
So, because a lot of people will say, well, God said he wouldn't destroy the earth by water. He will not.
He won't.
When he said he would not destroy the earth, that means life on earth too. He's not going to do it by water. He's going to do it by fire this time. He was
he was very obvious
to say that. So
now, Mike,
we're going to have flood events that will cost. That's really going to start a chain of events, Pastor Paul, that will change everything in every society. Those are when the water breaks, right? You might as well call it the water breaking.
Yep.
It's all downhill from there. For a lot of those people, you know what? But it won't be for me because I have a different mindset. I can't live in fantasy land.
No.
What the Father's capable of in those times, Pastor. I can't get too excited because I've been through this twice. Trust me. I went to combat once.
Mike, we're losing you, Mike.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, am I back?
You're back.
Okay. I thought I was being lost. So you know what, Pastor Paul? Just on a side note, the meters here are pegging out from time to time. I have to carry a meter around. It detects microwaves and RF waves and all those waves, and it pegs out from time to time. And I turn it in every week so they can pull the data card.
Oh, okay. So that's part of your responsibility is to watch the meters. It's one of them.
Yeah, listen to it.
Yeah.
You hear it?
Yeah, I do hear it.
That's an alarm.
So what's wrong? What's it saying?
Well, it's 880 gigahertz is slamming into me with 297 milliwatts. So it's just all around this area.
Is it energy? What is it?
Yeah, it's energy. When it goes up that high, it's probably some sort of it seems like it's focused. So they have a lot of people carrying these devices around, collecting information. They turn them in every week. So because it's part of they're going to use that data for part of an investigation. You know that, don't you? And so a lot of people are carrying these things around.
Weaponry?
It probably, it could be. I'll say it could be.
Okay.
I'll be safe.
Okay.
But
so
I'll let you guys figure that out.
All right. I won't push too hard, but it sounds like.
But I tell you, when you're sitting there, right, and all of a sudden you get hot, right?
Yeah.
Man, you get a hot flash. You get hot, and then you don't know what's going on. You can't escape it. And you end up, if you would disconnect from all your electronics, get away from cell phones, take any headsets off your head, get away from electronics, it'll subside. And yeah, that happens. And normally that high heat is followed by settings in your computers or electronics going wrong. Things go wrong with the electronics. So that normally happens.
Okay, folks. So Mike from Around the World's with us tonight. Obviously, he's helping us out here. He can't divulge everything, but I think you can read between the lines if you that's why you should be here every Thursday night to get the information. Heidi is also analyzing. What I mean by that is she's not scrutinizing. She's taking what Mike says and then finding some deeper research to kind of help you go a little further into some of the stuff he says. And she did that from she's working on it. She's been working on it all day from last Thursday night because we were traveling, kind of threw her off. She'll have that in a little bit, and then she'll post it on Patreon. But then she's going to have to go digging into this one. So, okay, Mike, it does sound like that we, besides having a space event, a weather event, there's also some manipulation, or there's some weaponry technology that, and I heard your meter going off again. So it's going.
Yeah, no, I got to cover it up. It's going crazy.
Is it radiation? Are you getting hit with radiation?
All that's any type of RF signal or something like that. All of it's radiation.
So what you said about getting hot all of a sudden, and then not knowing why because the temperature didn't change.
Yeah.
But could we could be getting some microwavable
Absolutely. You could be that could be harassment. There's a better term for it. That could be harassment. And but like I said, they'll get away from your electronics for a few minutes and it'll go away.
All right. Now let's talk about something else. This food shortage, you have discussed it to some degree over the last month or so. Heidi did a report today she found for me. 48 nations now are in serious food shortage and water, and it's only going to get worse. As you say, with the water going to rise, it's going to pollute it. The water will get polluted because the body's going to come up, the sewer system is going to overrun. There's going to be the water is going to be corrupted, right? And then we're going to have a shortage of water, and that water will be no good. This is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah,
these are some very serious, critical times that the Bible says, and the Bible says it'll rain on one city and not two others, and people will leave. The people from the two cities that go to the one, but there still won't be enough. The Bible talks about the fact that there will be the sun was going to hurt, and people are it's going to scorch men. They're going to blaspheme God, and all their tongues for pain still won't repent. I'm going to ask you a question. You're not shocked by this 12.5-pound ice ball crashing through this guy's house yesterday in Wisconsin, because you told us these things were coming. Let me ask you a question about the food shortage. What do you say the next 12 months? What's going to happen here in America? Are they trying to do away with beef and dairy because we can't find any in Lafayette this afternoon?
Pastor Paul, if listen, for a long time, there have been guys out there that have they have died behind their findings, but They understand that the earth is in trouble, right? It's just in trouble. This is the first time that societies have been on the earth when a certain cycle comes around, right? So we have civilization now, and they know what happened to all the rest of the civilizations.
Okay. Yep.
They're just playing like they don't, right? They have a clear picture of what happened. They have the evidence. They have the recordings. And yes, I said recordings because they would have everybody believe that somehow we were in the Stone Ages trying to start fires with sticks. That never happened. That just never happened. Society has restarted. People utilized older technology to get through, and then they recreated what they had before. Again, we've been here before. So those records are out there. Anyway, they understand what happens to the earth. They know it's coming back again. And so they have been genetically modifying the plant life to withstand radiation. And if anybody out there did a serious study on what they're doing to the plants and what they have done to the plants, they know it's for robustness, right? So if you had, if you put a plant through chemo, it could survive it with no problem because it's been genetically modified to resist that cellular breakdown from that. And that's all you have to do is a real simple solution anyway. The reason they did that is because they're covering up two things. Number one, because we're going to have a somewhat of a radiation event here on Earth and a build up to some very bad things. They don't want people to grab hold of that. They didn't want people to know too quickly because they would panic while we still had time. And if people panic, it disrupts everybody else's plans. And so what they did was they said, well, let's go ahead and make all the animals and all the plants resistive to these changes, right? This is why, in truth, they've been changing the atmosphere to reflect certain specific rays of the sun.
Chemtrails.
But they've been doing this on purpose because they understand the radiation of the sun. Some people, just the other day, an order came through, and sure enough, the sky's filled with chemtrails.
Chemtrails! Hey, but Mike, they said that was a conspiracy theory. They said we were all nuts. Here's how they talk. You ready? Here's how they talk, Pascal. When people came out and said they're spraying because they're trying to kill us, they said that was nuts. But no one has ever come forth and said, hey, they're spraying the sky to reflect sun rays. If somebody would ever come out and say that, they would not say you're nuts. See, they tell people that they tell people things, and people have to listen to their language. They tell you everything you want to know, but sometimes we don't always ask the right question, right? We ask it with trying to get them to admit something we think instead of getting them to answer, because they pride themselves on telling everybody the facts and then laughing in their faces because they can't do anything about it. They pride themselves on this. Right. In biblical terms, that's called a lie, because any type of that beguilement by way of telling the truth, like Satan did in the garden, is a lie. But they pride themselves on it. But they've been reflecting certain rays for a long time now. And when they don't do this, as soon as you put your hand in the sun, you feel the pricklies now more than ever, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a radiation effect. And a lot of people don't know that most of the radiation devices have been calibrated to. All of them. Like if you go out and buy a radiation detector, Hall effect sensor, something like that, all these devices have been calibrated, except for certain companies from China who do not calibrate their devices. Of course, they're not able to import anything anymore, or export, I'm sorry. And neither was a company in Texas was given a mandate to calibrate their equipment according to FCC and government guidelines. So, but they weren't calibrating it either. Same people lost on MH370 anyway. So
weren't those guys from Austin, Texas, and they were on that plane that just disappeared?
Yeah, they were. And two of the gentlemen there had intellectual property concerning something that everybody's about.
What happened to that plane, Mike? Did China just take it away? Did those people get interrogated? What do you think?
I don't think China doesn't have it. I don't think China has it. I honestly think, listen, sometimes to get brilliant minds to go away, sometimes things like that are, if you wanted to take
shot it down.
Minds, out of the public view, right? You'd stage an accident or something like that, see that people are missing or dead. Meanwhile, they're living happily in a facility somewhere, just living it up, doing their thing, right?
Hey,
we're in critical time right now.
look, the NSA told me, look, you know, they could run into me with a car. I could have a mysterious car crash. 2 weeks later, I did. Then they showed up and said, "See, this is what I'm talking about." So yeah, they could shoot a plane out of the sky if they want to. Wow.
But here's this. I had to laugh. I don't mean to waste time, but I had to laugh. Everybody's talking about stealth technology, right?
Yeah.
How expensive it is. But MH370 turns off their transponder. Nobody can see it, right? Nobody can see it. Nobody can shoot down. Nobody can do anything. So why spend money on stealth when all you have to do is turn your transponders off? I was just shocked that nobody had that argument on public news and saying, wait a minute, no government can find this plane in the air because they didn't have a transponder, but we can detect missiles flying and everything else.
Yeah.
What?
I knew that was a lie. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. You could shoot a missile. We were watching Israel shooting down rockets, but you're telling you could detect stuff coming from. Listen, I just interviewed a guy from World War II. His name is Irving Locker. He's 96 years old. His job was to run 4 guns in the Battle of the Bulge, okay, and to shoot 90 millimeter shells at planes. He said we had a radar technology back 80 years ago. He said that would tell us exactly where to shoot the shell in advance.
That's right.
So the plane would fly into it. So look. They know what happened to the plane. Somebody knows. Right. I mean, they all know, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you know what, though? That's how people have to start thinking, though. Right? Don't think when people start thinking technical, they skip the small things like that. So the truth is they know exactly what happened to it. They know where it is. But again, if they wanted to take some people off the books of the earth, right, they could stage anything they wanted to and have those people go live somewhere else.
Yeah.
Those people were experts in their field. And one person in particular was sought after by every government on the planet. Do you know that? And but they protected this guy, but now he's missing. You know, he's missing. So they kind of sweep people off the books that way. It doesn't mean they're dead.
No,
that's not what it means.
They might have just brought the plane down and some.
They can take them out of the air, past Paul. They can, I know that thing was in the air, but you can take people off of an aircraft and put them on a observation platform right there in the air and let the plane go somewhere down in the ocean. You'll have the people. You don't need aliens to do that. They have observation platforms built just for that. In fact, there are a lot of things that people are not totally aware of.
You can transfer a plane load of people in the air to another plane.
Absolutely. And it's not some super advanced technology. Some of the avionics are, as far as the observation platform, it's quite a simple procedure. See, this is what makes it very difficult to explain certain things, because people have to be aware of the technology first before they believe something is plausible. And believe it or not, the civilians are so, just the average person is about 500 years, I said 500 years behind what is actually out there, which is why, it's almost like you're on a trail, and right when you get close, you miss it. This is why the Father is coming back to undo everything they're doing. If we could do it, he would have told us to do it, but we can't. He's coming back to do it.
Right? Hey, let me ask you a question then, Mike.
Way, but he's doing it.
So this upcoming webinar we got, that's going to be aliens, angels, and demons. Can you share some of these technology?
I most certainly plan to.
Okay.
Some of the technology is right there on your telephone. Can it be accessed? You better believe it. It's your phone. You can open that up when you want to. But normally people won't, tear up their iPhone or anything like that. I'm different. I take everything apart. I take cameras.
You think there's special little chips? You mean there's special little chips in the
Oh, yeah, it's built into the processor. When they do that, when they mold these things with the platters, right? A microchip is like a city, right? And on each floor is a different city, and each city has billions of electronic components, billions of circuits, billions of products in them, and all of that is smashed in a chip. It's at the microscopic level. That's what a microchip is. You have all these different circuits and products inside of one chip, and they have the codes, right, to turn little things on and off and do what they will. But one interesting thing I like people to see are the cameras that are on the microprocessors. It's a strip on the microprocessor that looks just simply like words until you take a closer look. And it's loaded with about 5 sensors in there with cameras. That camera can see sound waves, which means it can see right through the screen of your phone, and it recreates an image based on sound. And it's in just about every single chip that's out there now, especially, telephone chips and multiplexers inside those multiplexers with that mathematical processors right there in the planet. The technology is there. They have done so much, but it's not like you can take a chip apart and go find it, right? But you can certainly access it.
Folks, Mike Brown, the world's with us tonight, and it's incredible information we're getting tonight, but it's very necessary because of the time we're in. We're certainly moving faster than light speed. I just seen the president of Microsoft. I did a video on it earlier today. Brad Smith, I think's his name, said that we are just about at George Orwell's book he wrote in 1948 called 1984. He said, we'll be there by 2024. And that is ability to monitor every human being on the earth, everything about them, everything they're eating, everything they're saying, everything they're thinking, everywhere they're going. And we could use it to control them. And this is basically what went on in the book by George Orwell. If the president of Microsoft is announcing that 3 years now it's going to happen, then we know it's already happening. Okay, the technology's been around for a while, right? So, Mike, are they about ready to now move? Is he preparing us, or are they starting to prepare us for this new world order?
Well, they're telling us something, and so think of this. When he said control people, right, to manipulate them at this end, he wasn't kidding. Now, that's 3 years. That's 3 years,
3 years.
How long is the abomination of desolation?
3 years.
3.5 years.
Three and a half years.
So for 3.5 years, the kingdom of the beast reigns, and then it's sent right into utter darkness, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying he'll be able to do that in 3 years. The truth is this. Their implementation begins this year. It's already begun, actually.
Right.
It's already begun. Real ID is set for everybody to have that by 2023. However, when they speak that language, everybody should know this by now, you have to take years off. If they're telling the public they're going to be ready at 2023, they're starting implementation. They've already started implementation. When they announce things like this, they know that people will try to sabotage what they're doing. So they don't announce until they are finished doing it in the first place, so they're already done. That means implementation will come at the slightest crisis in this country or another country. It will happen with a crisis.
Yeah.
And with the food crisis, Pastor Paul,
Yep.
when the food disappears, that's when many people will pop out and say, hey, we have this alternative. I know you're starving. And here's the sad part. When you're hungry, I'm going to tell everybody something, because I've been with no food for 15 days, and then I had to survive some days beyond that. But when you have no food, everything starts to look good. Your mind starts playing tricks on you, right? I honestly start seeing hot dogs and everything. I'm telling you the truth, but that was a breaking moment for me. If you haven't gone through that, it's easy to sit back and say, well, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. But let me give everybody this picture concerning anything that will be like the mark of the beast. Imagine a person living in a neighborhood. Everybody's lights are on and they're out the 4th of July, except the Christian. Their lights are off. The grass has grown up. They have an eviction notice. So the entire neighborhood and their kids are playing. Not the Christian. Their kids are not playing because they won't take the mark. They're no longer citizens.
Right.
And they only have 30 days to get out of all vicinities to be sent to one of these re-education camps.
Right.
I'm giving people a real scenario.
Right.
So spiritually speaking, we can't play games with our spiritual sense of being. We have to be real about our salvation, because if somebody is playing around with their salvation, no, it's not going to be easy. But if we're serious about our salvation, I tell you, you will not lose your footing. You will not sink into depression. These things will not be a grave challenge to you. right? Because
Right.
the Lord's mind will be with you. He can, I'm telling you right now, he can cause you to go 80 days with no food and you won't even hunger. He's had people fast for 40 days and they did not hunger nor did they thirst. And this is in modern times, Pastor Paul.
Yes,
right?
yes,
You don't hear those stories. They don't spread those stories.
The media will never tell those stories.
But the Lord can pause every process in your body. He can rejuvenate you back to a youthful age. He can do whatever he so pleases. If we look towards him and see him as a real father, not some fictitious character in a book. Don't look at him as far as like he's in the distance, right? And remember, you're children of the kingdom. And as
Amen.
a child of the kingdom, Satan has no right to touch you. Remember that one too. He has no right. All dominion has been given to humanity in the first place, and Jesus set it back in order.
Yep.
Because, Pastor, if we happen to speak again, that subject of witchcraft has gone off the chain so bad it's not even funny.
You're right.
It's just not funny. And if Christians,
maybe we should talk about it next Thursday night. Maybe
my
we should.
goodness, because we have to. We just can't.
We got to deal with it.
We can't. Satan, when Satan speaks, a person will end up targeting somebody else. When God speaks, a person will love somebody else.
Amen.
Right? Satan will always have a person make a target of somebody else.
You know,
and
Mike,
I challenge everybody.
You said something great about the fact that whenever people are faced with these kinds of challenges, it's already happening to Christian brothers and sisters out there. You know, the children of Israel were 40 years in the wilderness, and their shoes didn't wear out. Their coats didn't wear out. Okay? They ate manna from heaven and drank water from a rock. I mean, and we're not talking about just a little stream. There was 2 million Israelites, plus all their camels and they had to eat like this every day and survive in the wilderness. So when God says, I will supply every need, and I will see you through, I won't never put more upon you can bear. God is going to make a way. But believe me, we're going to have to trust him and not man. We got to really, the rubber's going to hit the road during these trying times. It's going to be a short period. It won't be long, but we will have to be strong. That's what you're preaching here tonight.
That's right.
We got to be strong.
Pastor, you know what, too? We wouldn't be born this time if we were not meant to survive and have victory in this time.
Amen. God chose us for the hour that we're in right now. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's take it on with the power of the Lord. It's not by our might nor by our power, but by his spirit, thus saith the Lord. And let's have the faith of a grain of mustard seed to move the mountains. You know, Mike, I'm just really glad we're bringing this subject up because this is being ignored. This is being sugar-coated across the American churches all over and around the world, really. But if people don't know what's coming, when it hits, they will cave. They will cave because they don't know. They need to know what's coming and how God is bigger and will get us through it. Amen?
Amen. Yes, they do, Pastor.
Mike.
That's why I like shows like this, Pastor. God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike. I'll see you next Thursday night. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. God bless.